Hi, let's talk about relationships. A subject so broad and so big that one video is not going to cover it. And yet, I think it's important to be addressed in so many ways. So, yeah, we'll just go at it little by little. There's so many aspects that it's kind of hard to choose a place to start, but the best thing I can do is just share my own experience of some of the things I've learned in life that I've noticed that I'm still working on, because it's always a work in progress. But for many people nowadays, and probably all throughout the history of the humankind, and what I've experienced in my own life is that I had to grow up kind of earlier, like mature up and being in a child's body, but having a mature-ish, adult-ish mindset just to take care of people around. And it has to do with other people having issues in their life that they haven't dealt with, the way we look at our parents and how they treat us. And sometimes we might not be happy, but people don't consider that your parents and their parents and their great grandparents had similar issues that you're going through with your parents. That being said, it's like I've learned that my mom was kind of hot. She would get emotional and she would react, and she's passive aggressive, so she would just lash out. Whatever she feels, if it's not going the way she wants, she would lash out on people. And my dad, because he grew up without his dad, my grandpa died in a plane crash when he was like a 5 or 6 year old. So my grandma pretty much like she had two kids, so my dad and his sister. And basically, my dad had to live with grandparents because grandma said, like, two kids, just too much. So she just chose to live with daughter, and my dad had to live with grandparents in different city. So he grew up in a way where he had no support. He had no masculine environment to teach him how to be a man. And I see it show up in many ways. Like, my dad is amazing. He had to learn a lot of things. And I just see how when he goes through things, he's very quiet. He doesn't open up, he doesn't talk about it. And living in that kind of environment, watching my parents, how they deal with each other, their arguments, their daily lifestyle, like kids suck it up. Like they watch it and it becomes their personality, their life. So for me, I became very much like my dad. If anything happens, I would close up, I would have a hard time talking. But then having my mom was like a complete opposite, where she would lash out, where she would get emotional. And like in many ways, seeing my mom, who was uh, who had a hardcore dad, like my grandpa from my mom's side, for example, is like super duper clean freak. Like everything has to be organized. Uh, Everything has to be tidy. Everything has to be in a specific order. And if you don't follow his rules, because he's the man of the house, and he doesn't go in a logical way, he goes in aggressive physical way. So he gets like very violent, and he gets like he shouts and basically puts people down. Like a lot of different dynamics. But my parents grew up in very different environments, and whatever they have experienced with their parents and great grandparents and grandparents, it just like transferred to them and then me. And everyone probably grows up in those environments, one way or the other. And it's not just our family, it's everything around us. Our kindergarten, school, university, work, every environment kind of gives us a place where we find people that in a way are like us. So we tend to connect with those who are pretty much like fits our standards or have something in common with us. We're attracted to people who have traumas like us. Like, for example, you notice many women, and probably men too, end up in repetitive, toxic, negative, hard environments and relationships, and specifically having like an aggressive or narcissistic man. And not all men are like that, absolutely not. But just talking in generalities, some women find men who are abusive because they probably grew up in an environment where their siblings or parents or grandparents were abusive in the same way. They did not receive that love from their parents. So they grew up with that mindset, and that is the comfort zone. And while they look for love, they tend to find relationships similar to that. And so our traumas, our lifestyle, our understanding, like we tend to connect with people on those levels. And we might not think about it at first, but you find that currently your partner or the person you're attracted to has similar values to yours. Not all of them, some. They have similar mindset, not all the way, in a way. There are similar traumas or experiences that both of you are like, oh, too big of a crowd, that's too much for us. Or there's a certain thing where, well, both of you want to either be away from the public or maybe in it. Maybe there are certain relationships where you're like, red flag. But people tend to connect on whatever sort of traumatize them, whatever they have issues with. And those relationships don't last long because once one person chooses to grow, has experienced enough life to the point where they choose to change, and when they want to change, it's very hard to stay with the person who doesn't. It's very hard to stay with the person who is still the same, and while you're looking for all of these things that, well, look, like new activities, new interests, new habits, I have to be different. And whenever there's too much of a change and one person stays the same, the relationships usually don't last long. And I've noticed that in my environment where, as a woman, like I mentioned previously, I had to become like a little parent to make sure that I was like an, how should I say it, like cotton or soft. Like I would soften things up. I would see what's going on. I would not talk much, but I would sort of like being quiet, look around me, scan the environment, being like hyper vigilant, and trying to find a way to fit in with everyone, to make sure that I can soften things up and, like, hey mom, you're going through stuff. Like I can listen to you. Hey dad, you want to talk it out? I'm here for you. And in every way, I would adjust myself so that everyone would be happy. But when other people in the environment are not changing and you're the only one ish, because like I'm no special or anything, but like for that period of time and in specific events, when I was around my parents or my brother or family and all, I would always like try to make sure that being a people pleaser kind of ish, my needs were lowered or non-existent at all. And I grew up in a way where my opinion never really mattered. What I had to say, no one really cared about. And at the same time, no matter what I would choose or pick, it wouldn't matter at all because the outcome and the choices were always different. A simple thing. Uh, my mom offers me a few things and she asks for my opinion and I choose what I like and she would pick the other one. Same would be with my dad. And it comes in a way where they had love for me and they wanted what's better, but I wanted what's simpler. Like I had different preferences. Like I would look at, oh, there's this goodie and this goodie. Which one do you want? I'm like, well, we're kind of saving money, so I'm gonna pick the one that costs less, and they pick the other one. But funny enough, a thing that would cost less would also be yummier, for example. So little things like that, but I grew up in a way where I had to minimize my needs the way what I thought was best at the time. And so, like, trying to fit in, trying to help everyone else made me a person or a woman or a teenager or a girl who had to man up and be the parent. And in a way, like, I became a tomboy. My femininity didn't matter because it was like, oh, it's just gonna attract too much unneeded attention, and I don't even have time for myself, and me not existent at all. And so for a lot of things, it kind of made me the person who had to take care of a lot of things, and everyone was happy about it. But it's like Plumbing, I can do plumbing. Fixing things, I can fix things. You want this, and I can do that. Like little things, but I've learned the essentials. And when I ended up getting into first relationship, I noticed that I was this person who had a really hard time accepting anything because I never knew that people could really give, and I did not knew how to accept. That was really hard to handle, and basically I end up being the person who always gives, 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 but never takes and doesn't get back much. But I don't get back much because I don't know how to take. And so I've learned a lot of things where that is an issue. People have relationships that are hard to handle because people take up different roles. That whole feminine, masculine, introvert, extrovert, I think everything is balanced out in the person. Like, okay, I'm in a girl's body, but I have different preferences. That doesn't make me a boy. But let's say as a kid, I would like playing with cars more than dolls. Playing Lego was way better than playing with dolls. In any way, like almost any activity, playing with guns, playing with sticks, playing like with whatever was more fun than dolls. Still is to me. And yet, I'm still a girl. But for me, that role, when I like the current relationship I'm in, I had to learn a lot because for a relationship to work, in my eyes and my subjective opinion, both people need to learn how to dance, accept each other. I really liked Tony Robbins saying that we come into relationship to give, not to take, not to have specific needs met, to give and to share. And I'll double down on it because in any way, if we did not have relationships with other people that are intimate, for example, and we just had us or friends, but when you're by yourself, you have to feel good enough. We have to make sure that we learn to function as people without needing anyone else. If you're unhappy, don't look for someone else to make you happy. If you're not tidying your house, don't look for someone else to make it tidy. Like, for me, I don't like cleaning up. It's never gonna be my top priority. I watched my mom being like and my grandpa. Like, if you think my grandpa is bad at being tidy and organized, my mom is like 10 times bigger and just amplified on steroids. Like growing up, where she opens up my drawers and my clothes are piled up there like just shelves, but yeah, whatever. So I don't fold my shirt. Like I don't have a priority, so I would take off and just yeah, whatever. Next time, my mom opens up, sees that like everything, absolutely everything that's in the wardrobe goes down. Like it can just be one shirt that's not folded perfectly. Whatever else is in the wardrobe will go out of it, and you have to spend the whole day cleaning up, tidying up, folding up. Like so, for me, I saw that and I was like, I am like this stubborn, resistant little whatever you want to call me. So like I always resisted with my uh, things I saw from my mom. So I clean up if I have to, or like I'm it's not gonna be piled up. Reading like Jordan Peterson, you're not gonna feel good if your environment sucks. As in, if you wake up and you spend your day in your house, and your house like and your bed is a mess and your kitchen is a mess, when you walk around it's depressing. So you have to clean up little things, right? But just a simple psychology, just simple basic things in life where you keep your environment clean, you feel clean. Same with your body. Like if we don't look outside, we look within. Whatever you consume, if you consume crap and junk food, you're gonna feel like crap as well. If you change your lifestyle where you are working out, you are eating decent food, you are watching what you're consuming, you don't have to have a perfect diet and everything fits. Like, allow yourself times where you do pamper yourself, where you do reward yourself and get a pizza or a hot dog or something. but also don't make it your every single day habit. So little things like that. But once we learn how to function by ourselves, that we learn to love ourselves enough to allow ourselves to have those rewarding activities, but to also have all those basic human needs where you create certainty in your life, where you know that, okay, I have basic habits and routines and things I do, and that's my basics. Just how I survive. That's just how I live. So that's certainty. Uncertainty is like, okay, well, I'm gonna go for a walk. And then once in a while, you allow yourself different activities where maybe it's a new path you're gonna take. Maybe it's a new thing you're gonna watch. Maybe it's a new thing you're gonna read. Maybe you're gonna go to a concert. But having activities that create something new in your life, then connection and love. So in any kind of way and form, whether you have pets, whether you have friends, whether you have coworkers, we need relationships in our lives, and whatever kind, but we need to have that connection with others and to also receive love. If it's not your parents, if it's not your friends, if it's not your partner, for example, currently, your pets, your dog will love you, cat will love you. So those little moments, but you can find that like, oh, I'm loved. Yeah, that feels good. Great. And then constantly learning. Because once there is stagnation in our lives, once we're stuck with not getting new information and we're just in the same old position, well, imagine, and that's like, Lithuania had a lot of changes, but then when America kind of invented the light bulb, Thomas Edison, well, that's official history. Anyway, light bulb, electricity, everything else, yay, Lithuania was still with their fireplaces and matchsticks and things like, boonga boonga, still kind of uncivilized-ish for quite a while. But when things changed, like in Lithuania, we had a lot of massive changes in the last 50 years. So going from, look, electricity to, oh my god, we have like skyscrapers and the technology that's so advanced, it's a very short period of time. But imagine everyone else around you like using cars and like computers and everything else, and you're just resisting that. You're making your own life difficult because you're not accepting the changes. So we always have to adapt to what's going on around us. We always have to adapt to life and learn something new. Learn to like, oh, well, okay, today's world, people are, new generation, their new slurs and ways of talking, new laws and stuff. Like, we have to look at it, learn it. You don't have to accept it, you don't have to make it part of yourself, but you learn about those things. You talk people here like skibidi whatever, like, what the fuck is that term? Like, what the hell are you talking about? But the same way, like, people live and cultures change, our languages change. So okay, we're always adapting. And the last human need mentioned with Robbins is contribution, what we give to others. Because if we're always just getting things for ourselves, like, life is not satisfying enough. And the biggest satisfaction you're probably ever going to receive from life is when you give something. You make someone else's day better. You share something and you see that excitement in their eyes, or you change their lives. For example, my life was changed because I got a massage and I was like, oh my god, I never realized what a massage is. I was all like, yeah, I like making media, like I don't like people touching me. No. But look at me now, like 3 years working on it, and that's like probably one of my favorite things. And not necessarily just receiving it, but also giving, because I noticed that, oh my god, like I lived my whole life with pains and aches and tension, and that became normal. That became, well, that's just what life is. I did not knew that it could be better. But few simple touches and look, I can breathe better, I can walk better, no more pains, no more aches. Like life is very, 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 very different because someone gave something to me. And now when I can give it back, it just makes me super happy. Like, for example, like doing massages for people is like probably one of the best things currently in my life, because I can just see them coming in with pain, with sad eyes, with troubled life, and like overwhelmed mindset. And just after 1 hour, you see them stretching and feeling happy, and even all the suicidal thoughts that people have, it kind of goes away. It's not like you fix everything through 1 hour. Yes, it's a cure for it. Like, no. But, like, you can come to a person having this massive emotional roller coaster and 1 hour of just getting some treatment and attention and love. It's like whatever is going on, you put it away. It's no more, it's no longer a priority. It's no longer sort of fogging your perception of life. So once you meet those human needs and learn how to function by yourself, you don't need relationships to fix you. You don't need to receive that love. You don't need to like make me happy, entertain me, because I'm bored by myself and I need you to fix that. And a lot of relationships are that. People don't know how to function by themselves. So they expect their partner or lover, sibling, whoever's in that relationship, they're expecting that other person to change that. You might be bored shitless, but you come to a person and you're like, well, what are we going to do today? And that's what I notice in many relationships is that people expect someone else to offer activities. You're waiting for other person to make the first step of let's go outside, let's go to the park, let's go to a restaurant, let's go watch a movie. And you're like, no, not interested, not feeling that. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. So a lot of it has to do with, okay, well, what do you need? Do you know what you need yourself? Because if you don't, the other person will not never figure it out. Most people can't read minds. Most people are not going to telepathically pick up of what you're thinking and feeling. And if you don't know, well, how are they going to know? It's the basics. If you learn to function by yourself, if you learn to give priorities and figure out what is it that you like, what is it that you want, what is it that you don't like, what is it that you don't want, life becomes more simpler. When you are in relationship and you share that, life becomes way simpler. And I don't know it all. I haven't been in that many relationships. Like I have two relationships in my whole life. Yay, amazing! Like as in intimate, having a romantic partner, and all that. So looking at this and considering how everything's going, like I look at what people talk about on social media. What is it that they're not agreeing on? What is it that some people need and some people don't understand? And like they just constantly bicker with each other. But there are themes in life. And so once we learn to take care of ourselves, we come to a relationship to give, to like share. I noticed like that myself, and you probably have noticed that too. Whenever something really good happens in your life, something really exciting that's just like, wow, I'm just so happy about this one thing, there's gonna be a person in your mind that you want to share it with. Doesn't really matter who, but the first person that comes up in your mind is probably the closest to you. And you want to share that happy moment with that specific person. Why? Like, it probably has nothing to do with them. But you just got so excited, it made you so happy that you want to celebrate it with them. So you come to give. That emotion, that feeling state, when the other person hears it, they celebrate it with you and they amplify it. So we come to share, we come to give. And in that, when we learn to function in a place where it's not, the relationship is not something where we're going to take. Because if you're constantly looking for your needs being met by the other person, it's not going to be good. It's not going to work for long. And you might find yourself bickering and having this on and off, on and off, on and off. Some days are good, some days are bad, some days are good, some days are bad. And it's just like, it's not a stable, it's not, it's a difficult relationship. So you handle yourself and you notice that maybe there are days where something bad happens. There are days where life becomes too hard. And there's still that one person where, while you do not want to meet and talk to anyone else, that one person, well, when you share it with, you feel better. And they don't have to sympathize with you. They don't have to like, oh, poor you, let's go eat ice cream or something. But just being able to share that emotion, that event with someone else. Not necessarily to receive that sympathy and to hear all the words of how life is difficult and it's not treating you right, but just having someone to talk about it, to share like what you're going through. It makes life way better. And so, relationship, when we share things, it just works better. What I've noticed. But in my life, one of the hardest experience as a woman who grew up in an environment where I was a child that people never had to worry about. Like, oh, you're a kid I never have to worry about. Well, how great is that? That's not necessarily the best compliment because it's also in a kid's eyes, it's like, oh, you never cared enough. You never gone deep inside to what I feel. And whenever I try to share those moments, you didn't really give a damn. So yeah, of course, I'm the person you don't have to worry about because you don't know what I'm going through. You think that the picture and everything else is great, and I just work my ass off to take care of things to make it look that way, but deep inside I feel like dying. And most people won't even consider that. Like, oh yeah, you're fine, you're great. I don't have to worry about you. You're good. Look. So when when parents give that compliment to a child, usually it's just a perception that they don't really know the child. The kiddo has an address and things. And I'm not saying that every situation is like that, but the people I've talked to who grew up in similar ways had this feeling like they suffered. They've experienced so much, but whenever they would talk to parents, it never came up to a conversation where they could actually open up enough to talk about what they're going through. And when they tried, well, the conversation would shift. The parent would grab it. And it's not necessarily always the parent's fault. Like, no, well, we have to look at how our parents have been taught, how our grandparents have been taught, what they've gone through. So everyone has limiting beliefs, but all those traumas and, you know, limitations can stop with you just so that you will learn not to get mad about the way that you've been taught, but to actually feel sorry for them. Like, oh, mom, you're so tidy and you can't stand still and you can't have a break because you would always get punished if your room wasn't clean enough. You would always get yelled at. You would always receive some aggressive reaction from your dad that right now, when you have a still moment, you're not feeling good. I'm sorry for you. But we have to learn to look from different perspectives. So, coming back to what I was saying, becoming more adultish and maturish than my age was made me a person where I have to take care of everything else. And when I got into a relationship where my guy was actually different, way different than what I've ever seen, and I had to learn to be feminine. I had to learn how to accept. Because I would constantly give but never take because no time for that and I don't care. Like, I don't matter. I was always the last one. And to have a guy being a real gentleman where he's gonna take my coat off. We come back together or we go to certain places, he's just gonna take the top off for me. I'm like, well, I can do it myself. Why do you need that? And he had to stop me and say, like, hey, it's my job as a guy to take care of you. I'm like, whoa, groceries? Uh, living in my life, living in Lithuania, my family, it's like carry that stuff. You take care of parents, take care of grandparents. Don't let grandma carry that. Don't let that person do this. And you would always have bags or things that you have to carry in as a heavy load. But if you don't do things, you get punished. You get yelled at. Oh, you're useless. Oh, you're a cow is worth more than you. A rat is better than you. Like I received those phrases all my life. Like if you don't participate, if you don't put enough effort, damn, cow is way better than you. And growing up with that mindset that constantly have to do things, and if you're resting, if you're not doing anything, if you're not contributing enough, you're bad, you're guilty, you're wrong. So when I go to grocery shopping or do other things, and I'm just gonna take that load and just carry it, and my guy has to stop me and say, like, hey, it is my job. And I have to learn to submit and accept it, like, oh, well, I can do it myself. Like it was always my mindset. Like I'll do it. Why? Like I can carry it. What do you want from me? And I would get mad. Like look at me. I'm tough. I can do it. But that's not how a relationship works. I've had to learn then to subdue and like, oh, okay, you can carry it for me. But It's not that I'm subduing and I'm being like, I'm losing something, which was what I used to feel. But I've learned that there is someone who can take care of that. There is someone who is doing something nice for me, and I need to learn to accept it and feel happy about it. Like, look at me. There's this person who cares about me enough that he doesn't want me to carry heavy stuff. No one ever in my life gave a damn about it before. I was like, that's new. And learning that thing, that when you come into any relationship, your age, your culture, your traditions, your country's traditions, your family's traditions, the mindset, everything you grew up will probably be different. And we need to learn that. Well, the person grew up differently. Their mindset, their values, their thinking, everything's probably a bit different. And when you learn that they grew up where someone else's parents say, like, hey, women should not do that heavy ass work. Like, currently, like, there's a lot of feminism in life. Women are equal. Women can do this. Women can do that. And we're exactly like guys. Yeah, great. But casual things. You don't see women or that many women working on roads or in buildings and the structures and all that. Most of it is guys. The world platforms and, like, like, take the most difficult, heaviest, dangerous jobs in life. Most of it, 99% or 100%, will be men. And we have to appreciate that. We have to appreciate that there is a person who is able to take care of those things for us, to provide for the family, to provide for the country, to provide for the culture. And I think women need to appreciate that a whole lot more. From my perspective, like, I am happy that I'm considered equal, that my opinion matters, that I can vote and everything else. Yay. I don't vote, but still, like, in all those things that people have fought for before and now we're equal, amazing. But there is still someone who does way more than I do, who can carry the heavier load, who can take care of things that I don't even have to think about it or look at it. Like, thank you. Appreciate it. And that's where we have to bring it to relationships. As a woman, to be able to accept being taken care of. And it is very important to mention that not everyone will receive that. Not every guy will want to provide or will even have the mindset of taking care of women. Like, currently, or probably throughout life, there are a lot of men who grew up in ways where women cook me a sandwich, women do this for me, women do that. Like, there are differences. So when I'm talking, I'm talking currently. Currently, from what I am experiencing in life, I see this. Used to be the other way, but currently it is very different. Having a person in a relationship who tries to take care of you, who tries to provide, and specifically men, when you have someone who will take care of the heavier load, will provide, will give, will make you feel safe, like, the man is your fortress. Learn to accept that, learn to be okay with it. Like, of course you can do everything by yourself. Of course I can take care of it by myself. Yes. But to learn to not take action and allow the man to do it. Like, I was always the person who, if I would go and eat in a restaurant with someone else, I'm paying. Let me take at least half of it. Always. Just my mindset. But to have a guy stop me and say, I'll pay for it, I always felt like freaking uncomfortable. Like, I feel like I'm in your debt. I can pay for it. I make money. I can pay for it. Let me do it. And learning to, like, oh, you want to take care of me. Oh, you want to give. Thank you. And not becoming a person who is like, yes, buy me things. Yes, I want this. Like, my needs are super minimalistic. I don't need, like, no earrings, no whatever. Don't like that stuff. Don't need that stuff. Clothing? Look at me. I'm wearing, like, fucking Dragon Ball shirt. It's my brother's shirt anyway. Like, I took it from him. I liked it. So, like, I don't need too many fancy clothes. I'm like, that's good enough. Like, $2, amazing. I'll take it. Whatever. So, like, I don't need that much. But to learn to accept when I'm being given is a big thing. So from one woman's perspective, from my eyes, which is subjective, to learn to appreciate what a man does for you, to let him do it, to find that place in life to allow him the moment to be the man is super important. And I'm still learning that because there are moments where I'm just used to doing everything myself. And when there is someone else coming in doing it for me, I have to stop and like, oh, just let him do it. He wants to be a man. He wants to take care of you. Let him take that role. Give him that chance. He wants it, give him. So from that side, that's one thing. The other side, if there is someone in your life who takes care of you, learn to be gentle. Like, I really hated the way my mom was passive aggressive, all of her comments, the way she would lash out her emotions on those who are closest to her. And to learn to play it differently. Yes, there might be things that you don't like. Yes, there might be things that piss you off. But can we learn to not say it? As in, not never express it, but you don't need to blame the person. Oh, you're always doing this, or you're always doing that. Stop. Don't shout. Don't bicker. Don't yell. Don't make the other person weaker, or don't minimize them. Don't minimize their efforts because they might be trying their best. And for me, like, I've seen how others are acting. I've seen how my grandpa treated my grandpa. I've seen my parents' relationships. I've seen everyone around me. And I'm like, this is the person I don't want to be. 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 And I didn't have examples of what I want, but I knew exactly what I don't want to experience. And that was still good enough to set the base of my mindset of how things should be in life in my eyes. So coming to a relationship, and when you have a man or someone who's there to take care of you, learning to be a woman and to be gentle, to accept, but give that love. Listen, don't judge, don't say a thing, but be there. And for me, in my previous relationship, I was a control freak. I was scared in a lot of places, and I thought that by trying to control a certain situation, things would get better. It wasn't. Huh. To get out of the controlling position of how things should be and letting go, because I don't necessarily know better. I felt that way, but it ain't so. It's just like, that's my fear. That's my limiting belief. That's something I'm not dealing with properly. It's not your fault, it's my fault. But I'm not communicating it properly. What you're doing is scaring me, but that is my fear because of my mindset, because of the way I grew up. So learning to deal with those things. I've had to learn how to communicate. Because if my dad was the quiet one and I would be closing up because my opinion doesn't matter, no one really gives a damn about what I have to say, my opinion, well, nobody cares. I grew up with where it's best not to talk. And being in my first relationship, the guy would get really angry when I wasn't talking. Because it's good when you have people in a relationship where they can talk enough, but it was more one person talks and one person listens. And he was not getting back enough communication, and that was always the issue. Different cultures, different traditions, different way of growing up, different mindsets. So for him, acknowledgement was really important to have a conversation and have someone go, yeah, I hear what you're saying, yeah. And some sort of acknowledgement, any kind of acknowledgement, and some sort of feedback was good. But my world, that was never a thing. I saw how people just, they state something, and that is the only thing, and don't even say anything because you're gonna be bad. So for me, like, acknowledge, that's forbidden. You're gonna get judged for that. You're gonna get, a comment, and so best not to talk. And so I could not. Mm, 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 mm. Different facial reactions, but that was the world I grew up in. Someone has their opinion, and that's the way it is. And what you have to say, what you think, no one really cares. So that was unexpressed. And so the first relationship I've had this dynamic of one person is talking, one is listening. The other one is not getting enough communication, so he gets mad about it, and we would have little conflicts of you're not communicating enough, and me not feeling safe enough to express something. But when I did, I would get yelled at, or someone would get mad, and like, okay, that's best not to communicate. Like, my reaction was still the same. If I communicated, things got worse. So the current relationship I'm in, having someone who was there to listen and giving me that moment of silence for me to actually get enough courage to say something, to care about what I had to say, to not necessarily forget, like, oh, well, what is it that you like? And I point at the thing I like, and they actually pick the thing I like instead of the opposite. Okay, that's new. So, like, little things where I learned to actually communicate my needs, communicate, talk about what my opinion, what I wanted, what I needed. And it's not all about me, but learning to communicate back, learning to acknowledge, learning to reciprocate, learning to talk. That was important. And in it all, letting go of fears, letting go of control, letting go of trying to change things, trying to have everything go your way. That was probably the biggest lesson. Don't try to control, let it go. Things don't have to be exactly like you want to. Fears building up, your opinion, your emotions, let it go. As in, communicate it, but don't blame the other person for it. Learn to, hey, look, whenever this situation happens, I get fear because when I was growing up, my reaction was this. So when I'm seeing this in our environment, I feel this way. And it's not blaming the other person for doing something or saying something that causes you to have fear, but learning to communicate about that fear and how you feel because. So instead of blaming someone else, learning to talk about it openly creates this conversation where you don't make someone guilty, bad, or wrong, but you learn to share your life. And that is being accepted. And they can adjust their actions, or they can reassure you, or they can kind of dissipate all of your assumptions. Because most of our life, we assume things. We don't know. We see something happening in our environment, we see something happening in different with different people, we have conversations, but most of the time we assume how things is. You hear something, you see a headline or something, and oh well, you have your opinion about it without being there, without seeing the facts, without knowing things. You assume. So we're running around assuming, but not knowing. And when you assume and make it your reality and run with that story, it can get very dangerous. When you have someone come in and tell, well, yeah, but this is how you see things, and you assume it, but you did not know the facts. In fact, what happened, what really was, and when you see the story differently, the perspective changes. And so for me, learning that relationships and letting go of a lot of this, different mindsets, different fears, and learning to give. Like, I was always good at giving and providing because I had to, but learning to give out of love and because I really wanted to, that changes. And being a woman and giving that space for your man to have his quiet moments, to have his private space, to have things that he wants to do, to not control it, to let him do his thing, to not try to have everything go your way, but also ask, like, what he would like. And to have this grace of sharing and talking and supporting and all the kind of words and patience and petting and physical attention stuff. But also, like, well, that's when good times are. That's when you have good times. And when something difficult happens and the guy wants to share it, currently, if you would go on the internet, there's so many people talking about, if I say something as a man, I'm gonna get judged and I'm gonna get comments of, you're not manly enough, stop being a pussy, stop being this, stop being that. Like, that's terrible. This is absolutely terrible. Everyone needs a right and space to share how they feel without being judged and blamed. And so it was never really my thing to do that anyway, because I just grew up like kindness. Why blame people? You don't know their circumstances. You're not in their shoes. You're not living their lives. You have no idea how they feel. So don't judge. Don't. And so, like, for me, like, that was easy. That was, like, obvious. And when a person wants to share, don't make them less. You feel that way? You want to cry? Let me be that fortress at that time. Let me be your shield. I'll make it safe for you. At least have one place in your life where you can feel safe, where you can feel good, where you can be yourself. And if you want to cry, cry. If you want to feel bad, but I'm here for you. I'm here to support. I'll try to make things better, but it's like, you know how you get pissed off or a certain emotion comes up and it doesn't dissipate that fast and you're in it. Sometimes it's okay to feel that. You don't have to feel wrong and bad and guilty for feeling a certain way. Be with it. Feel it. Allow it to be there for a moment without having to change it. Like, yeah, you're feeling like tearing up, you want to cry. If you have a good environment enough, cry. It is okay to cry, especially if you know why you're crying. It's not just like too many things build up and you want to let it out. But I'm crying because I've lost something and I'm not getting it. And it just, when you can address it and be specific why you're crying, it is very, very, very healing for everyone. So for men to cry, for men to have the space where they can share all that they're thinking, share their fears, share their difficulties without being judged, without hearing a single bad word. Just giving them that space to be there, to feel that, and making it okay makes it so much. I mean, like, when you have someone who supports you, there's no better thing, probably, from my experience. Anyway, like, so I'm just looking at what I'm reading online, the relationships I'm seeing currently, and just sharing some. Like, it's absolutely impossible to cover everything, but just simple dynamics. Learning that grace of life to dance, to accept, to not control, to let go. And it's all general. It's all just few situations that I thought of. Like, of course, I'm not going to touch everything because everyone's situation is so different. The circumstances, the way we grew up, our cultures, our understanding, everything is different. Absolutely. So it's impossible to cover every single point because people will have different experiences where in the comments, if someone's going to talk about relationships, there are gonna be those who talk about how men are not doing enough, how men are this and that. And the other side will be, well, women are after money. Well, women are this. Well, look at the feminists today. Like, like you might have people doing the hardest job in the world, like a single man taking care of this, taking care of that. And there are women who create OnlyFans and they make millions and they make money way more selling out. Like, of course. So many circumstances. So many things happening, but little things from the current perspective, from a few points I've addressed, like you. Because, yeah, again, it's impossible to cover everything in this one video, because I would just have to spend probably a lifetime streaming, talking to everyone to cover all the sides. But just a few things I thought about saying today, just sharing from my own perspective. Like, I like that I'm learning. I like that I'm changing. I like that I'm understanding. And by far, I'm not perfect. There are days where I'm still learning to communicate. There are days where I'm still learning to ask. There are days where I'm still learning to address my needs, but also not make it all about myself, but learn, like, hey, let's have a conversation. And look at the basics. Human needs, 5 languages of love, or whatever it's called. And just being open. Being able to accept the person for what he or she is. That is so much. Without trying to change that too much. Just, you are that way, be that way. I'm okay with who you are, the way you are. Like, that's probably, like, again, one of the best things in life is being accepted for who you are. Being able to take off all the masks and not pretending, not trying to give them a preview, because a lot of relationships start in this way where we try to show our best sides at first. oh look, I'm this, I can dress up nicely. We come to the first date like dressed up all nice, and we give so much effort, and the first few months it's like we do so much for that relationship, but when we get together to that day-to-day life, it becomes very different because people are not going to be their best selves at all times. there there will be difficulties, there will be problems, there will be things that we have to deal with, and how are you going to dance and appear then? That's probably the most important part, which is why I am coming at this from like more simpler perspective. When you see me, if anyone would see me in person, I'm not going to be the best looking person, far from it. Like, I can dress up decently enough, like not have like sweatshirt and sweatpants all the time, but that's gonna be my like basic. At home, sweatpants, shirt, because it's comfortable. But going to a date and stuff, I'm not gonna wear my best dress. You will see me in my jeans, you will see me in my comfort zone. But when we get together, let me put on a lingerie for you. Let me do something for you specifically because I want to appear a certain way for you once we go deeper. If you accept me the way I am, then you're gonna get the best out of me, and just work on it. Like again, like different mindsets, different perspectives, but too many people play it that the best side of them at the beginning, and usually whatever else is what you get for the rest of your life. And for me, like in a way, that's unacceptable. Learning to accept the person for who they are, the way they are, and seeing their best side most of the time is probably best. But then again, I I have difficulties in life and I'm not at my best most of the time. But the person knows that. They know how I behave when things are not going bad, when I can deal with everything that I'm experiencing. And they know that, oh, it's a hard period. So they know how I behave, they know how I act, they know all that. And it's way easier to deal with life and to communicate and to go somewhere with it. Again, all of it is like very generalized, but I'm probably going to wrap it up for now because, again, relationships topic is super broad. Everyone will have their story to share. Everyone has been hurt one way or the other, maybe rejected, maybe never had a chance, maybe never even experienced love. So everyone has their perspective, and there are as many opinions and stories and perspectives as there are people, maybe even more. um, in a video game called Mass Effect, I think like there was a Sari race who said you can have 3 people in one room and 6 or 9 different opinions, and that's very true. So that being said, share your story, share your thoughts, share what do you think is essential. What is it that people are forgetting nowadays? What is it that they're not appreciating? Share what do you think is important, because at this day and age, when there are so many hardships in life, and we can look at many ways. Relationships, that's one thing. But then politics, the world, different events, war, and all that. There's so much that we need to learn how to live with each other. We need to learn how to accept each other. But be right about it. If you're like if you're super obese, I might not call you fat, but I'm gonna call you unhealthy. Me, I know I've gained some weight. People look at me like I've had people write to me, uh, after a year or two of not having sessions with me. And the first thing I receive, hi, Akvila, I've seen you've been eating well. Yeah, I have a great person who takes care of me. Of course, I've gained some weight. Of course, I'm not working out enough. But I didn't took that as a jab at me or as an insult. I took it to me like, oh yeah, it's a reminder that I'm not doing certain things in life for myself. So again, you don't have to be judgeful, but you can be righteous, so to speak. Anyway, probably should wrap it up because I can like finally got in the mood to make videos, so here I am jabbing about it. Uh Again, looking forward to reading your comments, maybe covering more of different points in relationships or whatever, really, because, it's not. I talk about spiritual stuff a lot. Talk about getting out of body, talk about entities, talk about different things, but in the end, it's all about the basics. And one of the most basic things in life is relationships. So, anyway, share whatever you want in the comments, your story, your opinion, your values, your mindset, how you see life. Maybe there's something people need to know. Maybe there's something you hate about life. Just have a place to share your thoughts if you want to. That being said, I hope you have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.